Hi, today I would like to talk about this gun I have. It's a pistol from 1730, Italian. It's quite long, it's 1 foot 8 inches long, or if you knew the new stuff, it's 54 centimeters. And it's about 2.5 pounds, or just over a kilo in weight. So it's quite substantial, it's quite heavy. So how you'd use this is a smooth bore. So it means that this bore here is smooth, and it would have taken a small round bullet. Now, if you looked at my previous video on my attic tour, I showed you a couple of musket balls. There were small round pellets. Now, when you were firing this, you would have first loaded it in here. Everything went through this side. It's not a breech loader in those days. Later on, they started to load them from here, but this was the early days. So everything was still loaded in here. So you put your little packet of powder in there. Then you'd have used a ramrod. Now, you can see where the ramrod was. Down that groove, there would have been a long piece of steel, very thin. And you'd have used that each time you put something in there to ram it down into the hole. So you've got your powder down there, then you put your ball down there, ram that down. Because they're round, you needed it to be fixed in place, otherwise as soon as you picked it up or below sort of vertical, it would fall out. So you needed then another piece of wadding to be put in there, rammed down again to keep the ball in place. Now, the bore is, when people say what bore it is, it's depending on the size of this opening. So you'd have had to know what your size of your bore was, so you can then find out how big your shot you needed. So it's too small a one, and it was ricocheted inside of here a lot and gone whizzing off in every direction. Too big a one, and it gets stuck in the tube, and if it didn't get out, it would explode in your face. So not a good idea. So you'd have to know what your bore is, and so you need to know what the caliber of your musket would be. Then on this, on the firing side, I'm no expert on these, so I could be slightly out. But what I believe happens is you would have pulled this back, put some powder in that, then you pulled this, and here where this little groove is, you'd have had a piece of flint. Now, again, in my loft tour, I showed you some flints, and they would have gone in there. Then that would have been pulled back half cock. This would have flapped back. Then you pull it back a full, another turn back. So when it's only partly done, that's called half cock. And that's when people say, oh, that's gone off half cock. It means it's not really completely done properly. It's only half done. And so when it's full cock, you pull it down here. You then pull the trigger. This comes down. This flies open. This, with the flint strikes here, makes a spark, and it lights this little bit of powder, the priming powder here, and it's gone into the barrel. Now, if you can see, I think you can just see it there. There's more light. You can see there's a little hole that's been bunged up now, because I think that's for safety reasons. It's been bunged up, but there would have been a hole there, so that the spark would have then gone into the barrel, and it would have gone off with a bang, hopefully. And when it's misfires, and they can be quite dangerous, because if it didn't happen, then you have to sort of go through the whole rigmarole again and make sure nothing's happened. And it's quite long. Now, the longer it was, like the rifles, they were very long, because the round ball meant that it would be, and because you couldn't have it too tight in here, because otherwise it'd explode, so they had to give it a little bit of room. So the ball would have ricocheted inside here a little bit, and the longer it has to go along the front to the end, then the more chance that you're coming out a bit more straighter. If you're only got one down to here, then it's more likely this will be still ricocheting about and going off in this way and that way. Even with this size, still very difficult to get a good accurate shot, but it would be better than a small one. Then once you've done your shot, if you haven't got time to reload and the enemy is still coming upon you, then you can then bring it up and use it as a club, because it's quite heavy and it's quite strong, and the end there is quite hard, so you could really hit somebody really hard with this, probably brain them even. So you could use it then as a sort of a club if you hadn't got time to reload. So this is the sort of gun that you always think of with the stagecoaches and stand and deliver sort of item. So that's 1730s Italian, a riding pistol. As we're carrying on the theme of pistols, I thought I'd show this excerpt from the Morning Chronicle. Right. I'll read it out. It's the Morning Chronicle, October the 24th, 1822. Surrey Sessions, Trial of Marshall. Yesterday, Henry Marshall, alias Moore, whose case some time ago excited so much interest at Union Hall office, came on. He is a young man of prepossessing appearance, and not more than 18 years of age. It recollected that he endeavoured to pass for a son of a gentleman of high rank and fortune. He was tried for stealing a pistol. It appeared from the evidence of Hall and another officer that on the day after the prisoner was committed for not paying a hackney coachman his fare, he was locked up in a strong room at Union Hall with 2 felons, and the report of a pistol was heard, and a smoke issued from that room. The pistol was taken out of the hands of one of the felons, who said he had got it from Marshall. The 2 felons had been so strictly searched that it was impossible they could have taken the pistol with them. It was proved to belong to the watch house. The jury found him guilty. The prisoner denied that he had stolen the prisoner. The chairman said he understood that Hall had inquired into the history of the prisoner, which might be necessary to hear publicly. Hall said the prisoner's character was, perhaps, one of the worst that he had ever come before the court. So far from being the son of a gentleman of rank, he was the son of a butler, and his mother was a poor washerwoman who was with difficulty supporting herself. The prisoner was her only son, and his habit from earliest days had been most depraved, his propensity to thieving being quite incorrigible. Before he was 13 years old, he was sentenced to be transported for 7 years, but his sentence having been commuted to imprisonment at the penitentiary, he got out upon the public after confinement of 5.5. His first act after passing the prison door was to go and raid his mother, from whom he stole 5 of her customers' shirts, and he was packed up 14 more to carry away. Sentence, transportation for 7 years. Penal transportation. Before transportation, most criminal offences were punishable by death, a fine or whipping. Transportation provided an alternative punishment for crimes which were considered serious but not worthy of execution. The usual period of transportation was 14 years for convicts receiving conditional pardons from death sentences, or 7 years for lesser offences. The American Revolution of 1776 meant that transportation to North America was no longer possible. Sentences of transportation were still passed, with convicts held in prison while the government considered alternative destinations. The prisons soon became overcrowded and extra accommodation had to be provided in derelict ships or hulks moored in the coastal waters. The solution was to develop new penal colonies in modern-day Australia. And on the 13th of May 1787, the first fleet set sail. Transportation was not formally abolished until 1868, but it had been effectively stopped in 1857 and had become unusual well before that date. During its 80-year history, 158,702 convicts arrived in Australia from England and Ireland, as well as 1,321 from other parts of the empire. Right, I'll just show you. There's a good picture of Black-Eyed Sue and Sweet Poll of Plymouth taking leave of their lovers who are going to Botany Bay in 1792. They look like they're good time girls. Right, thank you very much for watching, and hope you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. Thank you very much. See you soon.